Hello class. Today we're going to be putting what we learned from the value chart into this latest drawing. We're going to be drawing simple object. I'm going to send you this image. We're going to be drawing a moka pot. And the reason why I picked this image is because it's a very geometric shape, and there's different planes, and there's lots of shifts in value, okay, and lots of subtle transitions from light to dark. The objective of the drawing today is not just to draw a coffee pot. It's to render these values. This has the full spectrum from light to dark. And the closer and the more accurate that we do this, the more believable our drawing will be that it's something in the round, even if we're working from something that's just, a printout. And typically, you'll mostly be drawing from observation, like looking at the actual object. However, I want you to do this drawing from a photograph, which I'm going to provide you, because I want you to have a direct link between the value chart and applying it to a simple object. And you can see this thing almost looks like a value chart. It is a value chart. I want you to work on your drawing paper today. The other paper, not the newsprint. I want you to work on the drawing paper that I had you pick up. If you don't have that, newsprint will be okay, but I want you to get that drawing paper as soon as you possibly can. We're also going to be using the charcoal with a K, and we're going to first start by toning our paper down. The reason we're going to tone our paper down is to get a little bit of a mid value so we can erase into it to brighten up. We can also add to it to darken it. So I want you to take the charcoal with a K, use this sharp edge, and I want you to be very even. And I want you to go from the top to the bottom like this, like so. Try to make it as even as you possibly can. You don't want too much overlap. You don't want, too much of this. You don't want to leave, you want to be very nice and consistent. And I want you to take your drawing rag, and I want you to blend this in. I want you to blend it in, and then I want you to go over it again and darken a little bit more. Now, I'm not going to go too dark. You should take it to about I would say like a 40%, 30% value, like something to get us like a head start. So the reason I'm doing this is so I can erase into it. Because I have that mid value, it almost looks like I'm just erasing, but to the eye, it looks really bright. It looks brighter than the paper normally looks. It almost looks like I'm drawing with a white chalk, but I'm using just a pencil, just erasing into it. Okay? So I might go one more round. Like I said, I want to get some value on the page before I even start. So print out your picture if you can. If you can't do that, then I guess the best is put it up on your computer. So next up, I'm going to sketch out the coffee pot. I'm going to tell you I'm going to avoid drawing real heavy contour lines, and I want you to draw to the size of the page. So, the width, I got to fit it in this area, and I got to fit top and the bottom here. So I don't know, I think I'm gonna push the middle a little bit over to the left to make room for the handle. You know, maybe there, maybe a little bit over. So keep in mind all this area here is symmetrical. So take the time, sketch out the entire pot, make sure you're going really light. I got a rough sketch of the pot. If I was drawing and my drawing was getting too smushed, or it doesn't fit or it breaks the page, or if it's too small, then just start the drawing over. Flip a sheet. If you're drawing really light, you can just take your rag and use this to erase. Here, I'll do it right here so you can really see that it just rubs away. Okay, as long as you're not drawing with a heavy hand. So if you're heavy-handed and you've been heavy-handed, just go lighter and lighter, okay? So, looking at the coffee pot, the darkest area is this, the handle, and that's it, that's the darkest area. It's a little bit darker here. Well, it's pretty close to being the same value here, but it's just, that's that difference between 100% and 90%, okay? So, just like you did on your value chart, you can take this and this dark already because you know it's going to be the darkest thing on, and then you have something to compare to, okay? Just like looking over the lightest area is this very fine edge on the left. I think this is really light up here, and it's really light at the bottom because there's a reflected light that's bouncing off the table it's sitting on and then reflecting back up. So it's really bright at the bottom, but then it's also dark. There's a shadow underneath that real bright spot. So first off, I just got to get my general values in place. After I darken this and darken this, I'll go to lightest, next lightest, and I'll address each value independently, and then I'm going to work on transitioning those values where there's transitions. Okay, so I'm going to put this on the high speed, and you just watch me draw. So using the charcoal, you can see I've started adding the value. It's starting to take a little bit of shape. I still haven't completely decided on much of anything just yet. I'm just getting something on the page so then I can go and start making those adjustments. So what I'll do at this point, now that I have something on the page, is I'll step back. I'll kind of look at my measurements. You know, just look at the overall. I can see like this little thing up here, it's too wide. This could actually come down a little bit more. What else? I don't know, it's just what I see right off the bat. And then I'll start looking at the values and start figuring out where I need to, you know, go darker. I don't want to start erasing just yet, because the next stage is I'm going to be erasing. So I'm still just working it out, and so yeah, I'm still working out the drawing. I'm still working out the drawing as I build value on the page. Okay, so I'm going to go back to it. Now that I have some value, you know, I'm getting closer to moving to the next step. So at any point, I can blend in, you know, my drawing. I might use my fingers, depending on how smooth the paper is. If it's really smooth, I'll use my fingers, but this paper is really smooth. that I'm using. I'll use my fingers to blend it in because the rag sometimes will take off too much charcoal unless I'm going really, really super light. But that's good to know because at any point I want to take something lighter, I can just use, you know, this to brighten things up, which I'm going to do right now in some areas. All right, so now I'm going to go and work. Now I'm going to go and work back into the drawing. I'm going to use the eraser and pick out some of the lightest areas. Now, when I'm erasing into the drawing, if I use a lot of pressure, I can take off a lot of material, but I can also go really, really light. So the same thing about your sensitivity, you know, being like, if you're too, like you don't want to be too heavy-handed, it's best to go light and work your way up into more pressure. And I'm going to basically go over the drawing just like I did looking for the dark values, except for this time I'm going to be looking for the light values and trying to find, you know, some of these shifts where it goes from dark to light. And also try to identify the brightest areas too. Just make sure that when you're standing back and looking at your drawing, you're looking at all these different values the same way that you look at the value chart. Like, you know, does this need to go darker? Is this too sameish? You know, you're just constantly judging that, balancing, and trying to get as accurate as you possibly can. All right, so with that, I'm going to work back in. And also, while I'm working with the eraser, I'm going to be working back over with the charcoal too, in some areas. So another thing I want to point out, like let's say I take something a little bit too light, like this is a little bit too light. I can easily just pick up some charcoal and I can tone this down. Sometimes I'll do that intentionally. I'll intentionally go too light just so I can push charcoal back into it. Like, right? So when you're working, just always be aware, like, the drawing is changing and changing. You're putting down on a first layer, then you're coming back over with a second layer of value, then you're coming back over with another layer of highlights and marks and cross-hatching marks, or if you know, I'm using a little bit of cross-hatching. And then I'm going to come back over it again and again, and I'm going to slowly, every single round that I go through, I'm looking for how can I move this, adjust this a little bit more to get it a little bit closer to what I'm drawing. Also, through putting down those multiple passes of the materials and the removing of materials, I'm honing in. I'm honing in the entire drawing. I'm honing in the proportions, the shapes, the line work, the value. I'm doing this all at the same time. So when you're drawing, you've got a lot, you're shifting gears quite a bit. So I think I'm going to leave it here for now, because this is about where I want you to be, middle of the class. You know, pushing values, looking at the shapes. You know, if I stand back in this drawing as I'm doing now, I can see a couple things that I need to fix, like this needs to be wider, it goes darker, this is a little too dark and too wide, maybe this needs to come up a little bit. You know, I'm gonna make mental notes of all those things that I see that need to be fixed. Like maybe this needs to come out a little bit more. Yeah, this definitely needs to come out a little bit more. I'm gonna look at this negative space, maybe my hand, maybe the edge here comes out a little bit more. You know, like I said, I'm gonna keep refining the drawing, okay? So get the drawing to this stage, and this is what I expect to see, like I said, midway through the class, and I'll give you some feedback, and we're gonna be pushing on this drawing for the whole class period, okay? All right.